He had him in a blender and he's off to the races. This will be 6. What a play. 82 yards.
Welcome back to the Victory Formation podcast. I am Will and this is Carl, my friend. How are you going today, Carl? Plenty of action in the NFL this week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a big week, draft day and even some off-field stuff. Obviously the news of DeAndre Hopkins with having banned substances in his system, so produces opportunity for players who we may talk about in
today's
this
episode.
draft. Yeah,
it's a big episode we're gonna get into today. So basically we're gonna be going through the draft that's happened last Friday for us in Australia, but Thursday for you in the US of A. Without further ado, we can get into it. So the first skill player off the board, so just in context, so this is NFL Dynasty Superflex League, so we'll be talking about that in particular. So so the first one off the board was Drake London, pick 8 to Atlanta Falcons. What did you see of that move from the Falcons?
Oh, I thought it was a great move. Arguably they had the worst NFL wide receiving core with Zacchaeus, Bird and Hodge. Not some household names in there for sure. So yeah, it was definitely a very good pickup. Pick up London. Him and Pitts are just going to be the future of that receiving core. And it's going to be, when they do get a quarterback, or maybe if Ritter comes into that, it's going to be a nice young refurbished sort of team.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that one. I think it's a good landing spot for Drake London. There's obviously some better ones out there, but going as high as he did, he's got that value invested in him by the team already. He's likely to take the number 1 role. I can't see Ridley being there next year, so I see a drop in Ridley's value. But there's no reason he can't produce at that level. He hasn't had the best quarterback in the country through college, and he still produced at an outstanding level. So I think the NFL is just the next step for him, and he's going to dominate next year. He might not be wide receiver 1 tier yet, but once they draft a good quarterback, if Ritter doesn't hit this year, mate, he's going to be a phenomenal prospect and going to be wide receiver 1 for the next 5 years at least. So yeah, I really like that pick, and I think his value has gone up since that selection. I think it isn't the worst landing spot he could have gone to. So yeah, I'm looking at him in fantasy for my league.
You touched on Ridley, obviously. Out of that suspension, that provides him with the most opportunity he can in that receiving spot. And you'd probably think that they'd be shipping Ridley off somewhere else once his suspension is finished. If he landed at something like Washington, he might have gone lower in value in that regard, because he would have had to sit behind McLaurin or something like that. So
exactly.
Yeah, I feel like Atlanta's a very good landing spot for him.
So next player off the board was Garrett Wilson. So he went to the Jets with pick 10, Carl. Personally, I love this move. I think the Jets have had an outstanding draft. I think pick 10 shows where he is valued in the whole league. I don't think he was going to drop much lower than this. And I just think he's a phenomenal player. Like, he's really going to tear it up in his first year. I know it's Zach Wilson throwing it to him, but Zach Wilson's now got the weapons. He's got Breece Hall, Elijah Moore, and now he's got Garrett Wilson. So I love it. I think Zach Wilson will definitely set up in value. Garrett Wilson, I think it's a good landing spot for him. He's got that value invested. He's going to be that wide receiver 1. However, I will say for Elijah Moore's part, I think he will still be valued. I know he's probably going to take a slight hit, but I can see a similar situation to AB and Juju a few years ago, where Garrett Wilson does take the double teams, well, maybe not the first few weeks, but later in the season or early into next season. And then I can just see Elijah Moore flourishing in that sort of number 2 role. What did you see of that move for them, Carl?
Look, I'm not sure how I sit with this. Obviously, Zach Wilson had his struggles last season, and that is a concern coming into this season. You think his second year, he's had a year to learn and work around the NFL defenses and try and pick them apart, but he hasn't necessarily proved himself in the league yet. So there are some slight concerns in that regard for Wilson's output in terms of he's going to really cop most of the targets, that's for sure, and he's going to have a large target share, but it will depend a lot of how Zach Wilson develops himself into his second year. So they do have a poor receiving core, so he will, like I said, that's why he will get majority of the targets and the touches, and as obviously he's going to be that number one receiver and have that potential, like I said, but I think it's just very dependent on how Zach Wilson advances into year two for me.
Yeah, I think there's definitely worse quarterback. He could have had a Carson Wentz throwing it to him. We don't want that. So, look, Zach Wilson is young. He was picked 2 last year. We need to remember he's got a good arm. It's really how he develops is how Garrett Wilson's value is going to go. But I think he's gone up in value since the draft. Do you think he's gone up or down, Carl?
Oh, I think he's probably gone about, I don't know, I reckon he's probably sitting at the same from when he's drafted. If I had to choose something, yeah, just very dependent on how Zach Wilson develops. As I said, if Zach Wilson can take a jump like Joe Burrow did, then
Sky's the limit, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Garrett Wilson could be like a Jamar Chase sort of value, but yeah, if Zach Wilson doesn't come on like that, obviously it's going to affect Garrett Wilson. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I don't see him hitting as high value as Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase set some absolutely phenomenal records in his rookie year, so that's going to be hard for anyone to beat. But yeah, I can see a similar situation if Zach Wilson does hit.
Well, Jamar Chase-esque, I should say.
Yeah, but like I think Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, just in a category of their own at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. With the 11th pick in the NFL draft, there was the Saints had selected Chris Olave. So I really like this pick from the Saints. Obviously, with Michael Thomas on the back end talent of his career, they didn't have really others. They gave opportunity to a few last year, but they didn't really come on as expected. So yeah, they obviously went back to the draft and obviously sought out a high receiver in Chris Olave. They were dead last in passing yards last season per game, so it was obviously something that they needed to focus on and bring attention to and fix quickly. And they definitely struggled to move that ball up the field. Whether was the quarterback or whether it was receivers, time will tell. But I feel like getting a receiver of Chris Olave's caliber, arguably the best route runner in the draft this year. I feel like that's going to improve their ball movement in terms of the passing game for this season coming up. So
even in the future, I think it's nothing bad can really come of it for the Saints. I know he's the third wide receiver off the board, so he's not the best rated, but yeah, definitely has potential to become the best in the class. So in terms of receiving, so I love the pick from the Saints. I'm not fully on Chris Olave just yet. I know he did well at Ohio State. He had Jackson Smith in Jigba and Garrett Wilson, so he had 3 quality receivers around him and he still did well. So I think he'll be good. But I don't. In terms of fantasy value, I think he's my wide receiver 4 or 5 here, behind Williams and Burks for those last 2 spots. So yeah, I love him though. I think he'll be good at the Saints. I think if Jameis Winston brings back those days at Tampa Bay where he's just hurling the ball long, 30 interceptions in a year though, but if he brings back those days, mate, he's on for a huge wide receiver 1 season, because I see him being that number 1 option at the Saints. And yeah, looking at his profile, you said some ridiculous stats to me the other day about his yards and separation from the defender was the best in the class. So
yeah, exactly.
So he does know how to get that space, and his route running is phenomenal. So I love the prospect. I'm not sold on him yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did prove me wrong. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I feel like he's got a good base with, like I said, with his excellent route running. I feel like that's a good base, and he's just, for the Saints, he's just going to be able to get that ball moving, which they really struggled with, as I said last year.
Even with Michael Thomas being out the last couple of years and being able to string very few games together, I think, yeah, it's fantastic for him. Like, he's in a situation where he is going to get those touches and he's going to get that opportunity to grow and develop into that top 10, potentially NFL player in the wide receivers.
Absolutely.
So the next one off the board was actually Jameson Williams. We've seen how much NFL teams value the speed of these players, putting him up a lot higher as their field stretching option, which makes it hard for a lot of defenses. So, but the Lions have taken him with pick 12, so they've traded up pick 32, 34, and 66 for pick 12 and 66. Ooh. Yeah, I think I got it right. Anyway, it was close enough, I think. I think interesting trade. Love Jameson Williams as a prospect. I rate him higher than Olave. I think they've given up slightly overs to get him. But yeah, I think in terms of his fantasy value, it won't be the best this year. But in terms of future years, I'm backing him in potentially get a Bryce Young next year or a CJ Stroud. So there's plenty of upside if he is the number one receiver, which he should be over Amon-Ra. I know they've got some receiving options that may take away, like Hopkinson and DeAndre Swift. But I see him being the number one option. He'll come back this year. His ACL, it has been rumoured that his ACL has healed quite well and he should be back before the start of the season, but he probably will miss those training camps. So I see him being a very viable option this year. I wouldn't target him as aggressively as a Drake London or a Garrett Wilson, but I see his value going up just purely off the fact that next year he will get that good quarterback. He won't have Jared Goff. But yeah, this year maybe, yeah, I wouldn't touch him in the first 5 picks of a rookie draft, let's say that much. But yeah, I think his value's gone up in the long term. In the short term, probably slightly down. How do you see it, Carl?
Yeah, look, obviously, I like the business with Detroit, how they did trade up to get that pick. Whether Jameson Williams was a reach at that pick or not, only time will tell. But they must have really saw something in him and really liked him for them to go up that much. And then also the fact take him on as an injured player as well. So they must have obviously really been wanting to get him and made sure that left nothing up for chances for any other team to snap him up. So
sorry to cut you off here, Carl. It sort of begs the question as well. If he didn't tear that ACL, how high would he have gone?
Well, yeah, he could have even potentially gone to maybe even New Orleans. Might have been interested, but they might have been.
He could have gone top. He could have gone top 5, I think, almost. If he didn't tear that ACL, I know it's not a career-ending injury, but pick 12 with a torn ACL, that's.
Like I said, they obviously see something very special in him. So, look, I think it's a good landing spot. Yeah, as you alluded to, more for the future, not for necessarily this season. This season will be a bit of a recovery. You know, it'll take him a bit of time to get back, probably work on his route running again, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, you got to give these players time for injury to come back. But yeah, I feel like, like you said, and obviously Jared Goff and a number of options to throw to in Hawkinson, as you alluded to, DeAndre Swift, and Amon-Ra. There's a lot of mouths to feed. So Goff is going to have a lot of share between those people. So he won't necessarily demand the target share initially, but yeah, if Detroit are down the bottom, which is probably expected, and they snap up Bryce Young, and Bryce Young obviously feeding Jameson Williams this year during college. He could easily be that wide receiver 1, and you could definitely see him have a big spike in his value for sure. So yeah, I think more future play with Goff and a lot of mouths to feed, as I said. Probably not as much, and obviously the injury to overcome. But yeah, future, if he gets back to full health, gets his quarterback from college, it could be a Burrow and Chase type of sort of thing.
Exactly. We're all alluding to that sort of combination, and you got to have these combinations in your dynasties or even regular fantasy leagues just to flourish. But yeah, back to that one though. I really don't think Detroit are going for it this year. They left their quarterbacks out there for 3+ rounds in the draft and still didn't take one. They weren't a fan of them. I think they're just going to go back to the draft next year. They really must like some prospects next year to ignore them this year with such a high pick. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
It's obviously Goff's last chance. He's got this year, and he's probably already had his last chance. They wouldn't, like you said, wouldn't have liked anyone from this draft, and they'd be obviously looking to Stroud and Bryce Young for next year.
Yeah, you never know though. Stranger things have happened. He could stick around, probably not at Detroit after this year, but he could circle the league for a while and just be a starter in those contending teams potentially. They just want to have that quarterback that gets regular points, I guess. But yeah, it would be a strong contending team, but depending on injuries,
yeah,
could find a spot on a roster here and there.
Yeah. I guess time will tell.
I know the winner of ours this year didn't have I didn't think he had a quarterback 1 week.
No, maybe not. I think he had to get a makeshift or he had to make a trade.
Because he traded for Seaman or something.
Yeah, Simeon.
Call him Seaman.
Yeah. Well, so, yeah, that's at least our Dynasty League. 16th pick was from Washington. It was Joanne Dotson. I like this pick more because he can learn in terms of. I'm not sure if fantasy-wise. Fantasy-wise, yeah, I actually think it is good because McLaurin's that main guy. He can take most of the coverage, and then Dotson can sit in the slot and get those easy targets and those easy routes across the quarterback's eyes in Carson Wentz. Obviously, probably not the most ideal spot in terms of him getting target share and also the quarterback. Carson Wentz, we know, is a bit very untrustworthy and inaccurate and inconsistent in his passing. So, look, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, look, like I said, if McLaurin's taking all the double teams and all the coverage and they're worried about him and Dotson is sitting in the slot, he could easily get some good targets and could maybe pull off some big plays and stuff like that. But yeah, for Washington as a team, it definitely helps their passing game. They obviously struggled last year, and obviously they've had that many quarterbacks, and McLaurin's had like a ridiculous amount of quarterbacks in such a short amount of time as well. So I feel sorry for the man. But yeah, look, he's going to sit behind McLaurin, and if McLaurin and Wentz flourish, like if Wentz played like he did last season for the first few games.
Majority of the season was really just that last one that cost him.
Yeah, he was. But then again, it's more. It depends how Washington play now with Wentz. They might play more system based, and he just might be a bit of a game manager rather than trying to pick off big plays. But yeah, it's a bit of an unknown. But I feel like learning off McLaurin and McLaurin taking the main coverage could help him flourish. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting pick from both an NFL standpoint and a dynasty standpoint. I see Dotson's value has dropped. Any man that has Carson Wentz throwing to him, immediate drop in value.
Yeah.
I saw him going towards the later end of the first round, so I had some hope he'd go to a Mahomes or a Tom Brady throwing the ball down to him. So his value has gone down a fair bit. But they had Treylon Burks on the board. I just don't get it. I don't get the move from Washington, but yeah, I don't have too much to say on this one. Just very questionable drafting in my opinion in terms of an NFL standpoint, and I think consequently Dotson's value's dropped. But that sort of segues into the next one with Treylon Burks going to Tennessee. I'd much rather him be at Tennessee than at Washington. Like with pick 18, I still can't believe that one. How he's gone.
Well, he's going to get that opportunity because he's obviously had that first round capital invested.
Exactly.
So he's going to get that. He's going to get plenty of opportunity. But yeah, from initially before draft day, his value's definitely gone down because he's probably around that Green Bay, Kansas City landing spot.
range, yeah.
Yeah, so everyone knows you'd rather Rodgers or Mahomes throwing the ball to you than Wentz. So
it'd be amazing. Look at Tyreek Hill just dominate. Look at Devontae Adams dominate for years.
yeah, so if he landed one of those spots, he definitely would have been up from what you think. But yeah,
I'd be with much odds if he landed in one of those spots. But unfortunately, there isn't too much to really appeal to me now. I think low end wide receiver 2 at best.
Yeah,
I can't see much more than that. What about you?
Yeah, look again. Washington, they're trying to fill in their holes, but they're just kind of band-aiding it. They're not really fixing their quarterback situation for the future. So who knows? This might be Wentz's last opportunity. A bit like Jared Goff in a way. Probably a bit more reliable than Goff. I'd say at least last year performed better than Goff did. But yeah, if they go back to the draft and they're projected to be average-ish, but their defense has gotten good, so they might be about mid-tier. But then again, if they go get a quarterback next season and they show that they're better than Carson Wentz, his value in the future could go up, but obviously depends on if they're going to stick with Carson Wentz or look for a quarterback next year.
100% agree with you on that one. Now to probably the biggest trade of the draft day / draft night. Pick 18 for AJ Brown and pick, third rounder pretty much with that, which they end up utilising to get Malik Willis. But AJ Brown for an AJ Brown comparison, what do you think of that, Carl?
Yeah, it's interesting what Tennessee did there. Was obviously they got a bit of media attention in terms of the AJ Brown trade, and also them drafting Malik Willis. You saw Tannehill was not very happy, didn't want any part of it. Yeah, so.
But in his fairness, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, look,
it's his career after all, and he wants to keep it going as long as he can. So.
Yeah, that's it. Well, yeah, obviously it depends on the personality as well. There's obviously some quarterbacks that are wanting to help and get the younger new generation for the team or the organisation better. But yeah, obviously Tannehill, you're right. It's his job on the line. So if he's helping him, then he's putting his job in jeopardy.
And we all forget. Last year they made it to the bye. They got a bye week in the playoffs. I know Henry was out most of the season, so it wasn't a running game that got him there. It was the team that carried him there. But I think Tannehill definitely helped getting them there in some sort of capacity. So
yeah, I think the main thing is that he just seems to make the wrong decisions at the wrong times, and they just get highlighted, especially in that game they lost to Cincinnati in the playoffs. I think he had like 4 turnovers or something.
The first play of the game was a pick.
Yeah, so I think when he's got into the big stage like that, he hasn't stepped up. So I think maybe Tennessee are thinking, well, they kind of have to rebuild and replace him, and even go back and try and get some value for AJ Brown. I don't know. They might have. I'm struggling to try and understand why they did that, but I know were they worried about his injury concerns that he's been getting all the time, but it doesn't really make much sense to me because it's not like he's older or anything like that.
I've had a look into this. I was hearing that he was demanding a pay increase, so he could have been boycotting to play. As you saw, he got a 4-year, $100 million deal with the Eagles. Pretty huge deal if you think about it for a young wide receiver. It could have been a bit of a diva sort of situation if he was not willing to play. Well, why keep him on the roster? Just get someone similar, pay him less, and a lot younger. So it's unfortunate for the Titans to lose such a high quality of player, but I think this pick here with Treylon Burks, I think he's going to be phenomenal for them. I think he'll be able to fill that role. I don't think he'll fill it as well as AJ Brown instantly, but I definitely think that role is there to be filled. Like, he's literally replacing a player he was compared to at the draft. So it's the perfect situation for him, really. He could have gone to Kansas, he could have gone to the Packers, but he's gone to replace the guy that was doing well in that position. So only time will tell. I think Burks' value's gone up. I think he's my wide receiver 3 in this draft at the moment because of this trade. And yeah, I really love it, Carl. What are your thoughts?
Look, I'm not as sold as you are. Obviously, with the addition of Bobby Woods over the off season, I feel like look, they're going to be competing for targets. It might be a 1A, 1B sort of thing. I feel Bobby Woods obviously proved himself as a very consistent, good receiver for a number of years now. Obviously, he will be coming back from injury as well with that ACL.
Big injury too, so he could miss that first part of the season, which could prove critical, really.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes with Burks and Woods in the same offense there. Like I said, Woods he's a very consistent, reliable receiver for a long time. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it all works post AJ Brown as well.
I'm keen to see, to be honest. I hope Treylon lives up to that hype.
Yeah, well, there's obviously a lot of target share that's going to be going to need to be replaced. So, yeah, in that regard, he's definitely going to get a fair bit of it. For sure.
Now, what are your thoughts on AJ Brown's value? I know you've got him in our league. Are you happy to keep holding with Jalen Hurts over the ball? You've actively expressed your dissatisfaction to that man.
Yes, I'm not a fan of Jalen Hurts. He just reminds me like of a Lamar Jackson, but he just can't hit targets and very easy targets as well. He's had his struggles in the league, and I don't know whether that's just been Philly's lack of receivers or if that's been just his capabilities. Only time will tell. This will be his deciding year, I believe, and that's kind of, I'm a bit uncertain with it. So to answer your question, I'm uncertain. I don't know whether it's a good or a bad thing. I guess time will tell. But basing off Hurts' track record, I'm going to say I would rather him be at Tennessee than he is at Philly. But I hope he proves me wrong because he's on my team. So
you're relying on him. I've seen you've given up all your. Did you give up your first round pick next year?
I did give up a first rounder and Michael Pittman Jr. So
yeah, should be interesting if you don't perform next year.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But hopeful. Devonta Smith did towards the end of the season show some signs and they did get a bit of connection together. So I'm hoping maybe AJ Brown can get that with Hurts.
He definitely will take that number 1 role as well.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And he seemed pretty keen to be there. He called Hurts immediately, saw videos, and he was pretty hyped to be there. So hopefully they build a good chemistry and Hurts can finally get over the hump and start making his mark on the NFL. But like I said, only time will tell.
100%. So,
and the next one is at pick 20. Going to Pittsburgh, right next door, Kenny Pickett. Look, he's a straight replacement for Big Ben. Obviously, Pittsburgh needed that quarterback. They did pick up Trubisky in the off season, but I'm obviously not sure if that's a long-term thing. So picking up Pickett, and going next door to Pittsburgh Steelers from Pittsburgh College, I think it's a very smart pick. Keep him happy, keep him home, and he was the most NFL ready quarterback. Like
you mentioned in the mock draft we did as well.
Yeah, so he was definitely the most NFL ready. And Pittsburgh are a team, they've always been there or thereabouts. Obviously, Tomlin never having a losing record in his time as head coach. So. I can see that sort of thing happening again and them maybe pushing for a wild card spot. Obviously a very strong division. So, they needed a ready-made quarterback and I think Kenny Pickett fits that perfectly.
They've definitely got him.
Yeah, so and they've got a good young squad offense building up with Najee Harris, Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Pat Frymouth.
George Pickens has come to the front.
Yeah, we'll touch on him later, but yeah, George Pickens as well. So yeah, they're building like a nice young offense there, and yeah, I feel like it's just going to be a really fun year for these guys, and I feel like Pickett's going to flourish.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
What was your thoughts?
I like the move. I think it had to be made. They definitely needed a quarterback. Couldn't go in with Trubisky. Love it. I didn't think he'd slide to pick 20, so they've gotten him at an absolute steal. His value's definitely gone up. He's in a system where they like to win. I can't see him not winning in that situation. Big Ben did it the past few years. He hasn't been the best of touch, and I think Pickett's already better than him. So not in his prime, obviously, but in terms of his ability in the last 2 years. So I love it. I think it's a good move, and it moves Pickett to Dynasty quarterback 1 for this rookie draft, I think, because he was the only one taken in the first 2 rounds, which has to be some sort of record. And yeah, I just think he's a ready-made athlete. He's going to be there for 10 plus seasons, you'd hope. Yeah, I love the pick from the Steelers.
Yeah, absolutely. The next pick is pick 34 from Green Bay, and it was Christian Watson. Look, I absolutely love this pick. This is probably like the pick that made the most sense out of the picks so far.
It had to happen.
Yeah, so look, Christian Watson's a super athlete, and obviously Devonta Adams going, they needed someone who's just going to be instant replacement, and Christian Watson seems to be that guy. We also know Green Bay's history with second round picks and them being all pros. I think it's their last 3 before Watson have all been at least a one-time all pro. I think one of them, Randall Cobb, Devonta Adams himself, and there was maybe 1 or 2 more just off the top of my head. But yeah, they have a real good history with developing these second round receivers, and I feel like Christian Watson can jump into that same caliber.
Yeah, as you said, he's a super athlete. Got all the tools required for that NFL level. Look, I think it's the best landing spot you can get, apart from Kansas City, obviously, because we don't know how long A-Rod's got left. I'd rather know him with certainty Mahomes being there the next 10 years, he'll have him the whole career. But yeah, second best landing spot you can go to. Pick 34, he's had that capital. The stat about the second round is that the Packers definitely isn't a bad one to know you going into that spot. Love him in that spot, and his value's just gone up. He'd be a top 10 pick now in all rookie drafts, you'd imagine. Got the investment. Yeah, I love it. I'd rather Burks have gone there, but his value has just shot up Watson. So yeah, it's definitely a perfect situation for him. And I think wide receiver 2 this year, like in terms of fantasy values, and then he should be pushing into that wide receiver 1 once he has that experience from A-Rod. But yeah, he'll definitely take all the targets, well, not all, but most of them at the Packers, you'd imagine. So much upside. It is, yeah, it's insane. So
yeah, there's obviously someone's got to replace Rodgers' favourite receiver. So yeah, there's a lot of target share to be dealt across the rest of the receivers. So yeah, Christian Watson's, I feel like he's going to boom this year.
Definitely, I can't see him not booming. He's got the best quarterback in the league. One of the last 2 MVPs throwing him the ball. So yeah, I would love to be in his position. Might be a bit cold in the winter, but
yeah, absolutely,
definitely worth getting balls thrown to you from A-Rod. So I love it. Next pick in the draft was Breece Hall with pick 36. He went to the Jets, Carl. I love the selection on behalf of the Jets here. I think they've nailed it. And yeah, what did you think of it?
Yeah, look, I really like the pick. Adds that offense that they've tried to improve throughout this draft. Zach Wilson has plenty of weapons now. Obviously, Breece Hall having that receiving game. And with the playbook they did have last year, players like Michael Carter, he flourished in that offense last year. A lot of check downs for the running backs. So I can't see why Breece Hall won't flourish in this, and he'll obviously take. He'll have that 3-down ability. You'd think. What was your thoughts?
As I said previously, fantastic pick. I think, Zach Wilson's value's gone up. He does have that viable running back option as well. That will be the 3-down, I'd say, bell cow running back. I don't see Michael Carter getting too much of a look in after this one. I can see him being maybe a backup at best. So this bloke, Breece Hall, he's going to be a star. I said it, he's picked one in my rookie mock draft last week, and he's stayed there, and his value has increased, I think, because he is going to be that workhorse back, and he will dominate backfield for them. So I love it. He's got that size, he's got that speed, he's got that strength, and he's got that receiving ability that we all love. So I think that Michael Carter's value will drop. His value's gone up, and I think Zach Wilson's value's gone up as well, just because the whole offensive scheme will be a lot more productive this year, which will obviously increase his fantasy points.
Yeah, and obviously an improved offensive line as well. That's just going to help Breece Hall get those extra yards. Unfortunate that Michael Carter can't be doing that this year, because obviously before they drafted Breece Hall, everyone was thinking that it was going to be a boom season for Michael Carter. Obviously he had injuries last year, and not a great offensive line. Now they improved it, and then now that they've drafted Breece Hall, it's just plummeted his value. So unfortunate for him, but overall good for the Jets as a team.
So next off the board, we had Kenneth Walker, the third, going to the Seahawks with pick 41. What do you think of that one, Carl?
Yeah, look, it seems like that Pete Carroll wants to really go back to that running game. They haven't drafted a quarterback, and they've got Drew Lock, who is very unproven in the NFL so far, and has looked very shaky at the best of times, really. So, there was a quote from Pete Carroll saying he wanted to go back to the running game, and I think this guy's the perfect guy to help build that, help that rebuild, and help ignite that running game. He's just a power back. He's probably the best back in terms of just running ability. His speed and his big play ability is just massive, and I can't see why this is a good pick. I know Seattle do have a lot of backs. They do have Chris Carson and Rashad Penny, but these guys are very injury prone over their careers and not very reliable. So I know in my fantasy I've had Chris Carson, and in previous years I think he just gets injured every single year, and we know Penny has had his well documented injuries, as alluded to before. I honestly I think this is a very good pick for Seattle. How about yourself?
Love the pick again. I think the two running backs have definitely landed in the best spots they could have, or maybe Hall could have had a better one, but both excellent spots for fantasy. He's going to be that 3-down bell cow running back again. The Seahawks are going to go run first, obviously, with having Drew Lock and Geno Smith as their quarterback. I don't think they're going to be passing it too much. He's that power back. He does have Derrick Henry vibes, obviously not the height, but he does have that power back ability, which you saw him in college, 1,600 yards, a ton of touchdowns. What more can be said? I think this year's his first year in the league, obviously, and he's going to dominate it. He'll probably be a top 12 back this year, and his value is just going up and up and up now. I know for a fact in our fantasy league, he'll be going off the board in the first few picks. No doubt in my mind, he will be a star. So, yeah.
And the drafting of the offensive lineman, off the top of my head, I forgot who it was, but obviously they've had a well-documented poor offensive line over the years, and there's always been memes and whatnot about Russell Wilson having no protection. Looks like they're turning a new leaf, obviously getting rid of Wilson and getting those picks in. obviously starting from the ground up and starting with that offensive line and going back to that run game before they get a quarterback. So, yeah, just adding on to that, it's I agree with you 100% there.
Definitely not the worst way to build a team.
Absolutely. So the next pick we'll talk about is pick 44 was John Mechie, went to the Texans. So yeah, look, I love this pick honestly. New young, obviously with the breakout of their young quarterback
Big Davis.
Yeah, big Davis Mills. Yeah, look, they had no clear-cut receiver last year. Well, they had Brandon Cooks, who was their number one receiver last year, but he's aging and probably shouldn't be a number one receiver on any team. He's probably a wide receiver 2 at best. So yeah, Mechie, he slides into that spot, and I think he's going to build a nice relationship with Davis Mills there. Obviously with the rebuild life after Deshaun Watson. So I love the pick, and I think he'll really flourish and get a heap of targets in that offense. Just a matter of time of how long he takes to adapt to the league and when he will take that wide receiver 1 spot, but I have no doubt he will do that. What's your thoughts?
Well, as you know, I've got Big Davis Mills in my fantasy team in our league. Love the bloke. Think he's going to be a star. So I think John Mechie's the perfect pick for him. There's a few question marks whether he'll be the wide receiver 1 in his career. But I know if I'm getting him in the late second round, I'm going to take him and run because he's had that capital invested. He's a second rounder, not the first round capital we won, but he's played for Alabama. And you know how they are churning out their wide receivers, Waddle, etc., Judy, Henry Ruggs,
Smith.
Plenty of them in there. So yeah, it's a phenomenal wide receiver room. Jameson Williams is another one, so he was behind him all year. And he's still shown glimpses. I think Davis Mills, if he comes on like I anticipate him to, I know a lot of people are a bit off him, but I think the Texans have a lot of faith in him for a reason. And they didn't pick a quarterback this year because they do back him in the long haul. But yeah, this could age very poorly as next year they could have a new quarterback coming in with their first pick. So it's going to be interesting to see. Davis Mills' value's gone up. John Mechie's value's gone up even more because he's going to get that opportunity to flourish. He may not have the best quarterback to flourish under, but I think it's the best spot he could have landed almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with you there.
So next off the board we had George Pickens. He went to the Steelers with pick 54. What do you think of the pick, Carl?
Yeah, look, I like the pick honestly. I like it in terms of the Steelers in general, but at a fantasy sort of standpoint, I'm not sure where I sit. Obviously, new quarterback and obviously 2 sort of set wide receivers, or set young wide receivers in Claypool and Deontay Johnson in front of him, and then also Freiermuth. There's a lot of mouths to feed, so I expect his fantasy value week to week to probably fluctuate. He might get some weeks where he goes for big yards and touchdowns, and other weeks where he might not see as much. But I feel like they'll use him as a deep threat. Obviously with his blistering pace, he'll be used for that option, and which will probably leave him, like I said, a bit of inconsistent scores. But as a Steelers point of view, I like the pick. Obviously adding speed to their wide receivers there, as they didn't have much of that last year. Should be obviously a benefit to the team. But yeah, in terms of fantasy value, probably inconsistent. It might be a bit like how, or to a lesser extent, how the Bengals were last year with like T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, how they were a bit up and down. They'd have their games. So yeah, that's how I see it at least. How did you think of it?
I again love the pick from the Steelers. His fantasy value will slightly diminish as you previously alluded to, a lot of mouths to feed there. So, but realistically, he is going to be a boom or bust. You've seen the highlights. He's electrifying at best, and he can get ejected at his worst. I've seen he's a bit rough around the collar, but yeah, if he keeps his head switched on, he's going to be a gun. So I think this is a great pick for the Steelers. In fantasy terms, maybe not going to be great value this year. But if you can pick him up and hold him a few years and he turns into that something, you're going to be laughing. If you're getting in the early parts of the second round, his value's only going to go up. He was touted to go in the first as well. I think the discipline issues could lay into that a bit, why he slid down a touch. But yeah, I love the pick.
Yeah, look, I think in that regard, I think Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the NFL to deal with those sort of personalities. We obviously saw last year him having to deal with, even to a less extent, like Juju and Claypool with their TikToking and whatnot, and trying to rein that in. But also even dealing with Antonio Brown, like he kept him happy for that long, and we know everywhere else he's been, he's had his issues. So yeah, look, I think that's the best spot for him to land, just based off a disciplined sort of view. But yeah, which could mean he could become a steal in that second round, and we know how the Steelers have gone previously with those second round wide receiver picks. Have seen it hit on a lot of them in the past. So yeah, in that regard, I see it as a good landing spot.
So next off the board we have McBride for the Cardinals with pick 55. Now I'm just going to get straight into it. I love this pick from the Cardinals. Again, I'm loving a lot of these landing spots. He's got the tight end one role, you'd almost think, over Ertz now. I think he's going to get those targets from Kyler. So, look, he might not get that capital in Dynasty Leagues this year just because the way tight ends are valued, they take a few years to come on. But in the second round, you're really going to be hoping that they do turn into a tight end one. So, I think that's probably his ceiling. I think his value's gone up. But yeah, in our league, we don't do tight end premium, so he'll definitely be sliding a bit later in our draft.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. And I think also he could have that instant impact, obviously with Hopkins missing with that drug substance ban. I could see him getting some targets early and potentially being that end zone target while Hopkins isn't there. So he may be able to come on earlier than expected in that regard. But yeah, he should probably be that number one, or maybe at first he might battle for the targets with Ertz, but I think overall that's the way that they'll move forward with McBride. Look, they got Ertz purely last year because they did not have a tight end. I think he was just a band-aid fix, but now I think they've actually got a guy who they're really going to put into their future, and he's going to be a massive part of that. So yeah, look, if you're going to get him with like a late second or early third, I'd definitely pick him up. He's definitely got that potential, and yeah, the Arizona receivers. Yeah, look, when Hopkins comes back, he might lose a couple of touchdowns that he might have got earlier in the year, but I think he's still got a good passing offense and still gonna get plenty share of the end zone as well.
That's completely fair enough, I think.
The next one was pick 63, James Cook to the Bills. Yeah, look, I love this pick. I know I'm saying about a lot of these picks, but the Bills really needed to improve their running game, and I think James Cook's the perfect one to do so. Look, they had their trials with Zach Moss and Singletary going through last year, and even Matt Breida. But yeah, none of them seemed to come on 100%. Singletary had his games, but he also had his off games as well. And I just think James Cook is going to give them a much more consistency in the backfield. Look, obviously, then the Bills aren't a very pass-heavy team, and they're not huge on the run game. But yeah, look, I think he's just much more talented than those others, and the others have had their time, and they haven't really come on, like I said, as they did. So I feel like this will obviously improve that run game, and look, it'll open up some plays for Josh Allen as well, because they've obviously got to respect Cook, the other defense. So yeah, look, I think it's a very good pickup for the Bills in general, other than a fantasy perspective as well. What was your thoughts?
I think in terms of James Cook's value, it's very good for his value. It's going to go up. He's got one of the best offenses to work in now. the Josh Allen throwing the ball to him definitely helps as a running back to have that versatility in the receiving game. As a pick from the Bills, so non-fantasy related, I hate the pick. I'm sorry, Carl. I know you love the pick, but the Bills, I think, have messed this one up. I think they've held off too late, and I think they need to get Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall to really help Josh Allen. I'm going to be honest. I know that's the typical landing spot we're giving him at the later part of the first round, early second, but I think holding off to that pick 63 could actually come back to bite them because James Cook does not have nearly the talent of the other two. For a team perspective, I just don't see it benefiting them as much as it could have if they've gone a bit harder at those top tier running backs, as it is such a pivotal position, especially for a team that's got to contend against Mahomes every year and really fighting for that Super Bowl place. So, but in terms of his fantasy value, again, it's shot up. I still won't be touching him in the first round of my fantasy drafts. As shown, he didn't have many rushes in college. I think the most average per game was less than 10, which is just ridiculously low for any college running back. Like, if he's only getting 10, that's probably 50 yards at best a game on average. And it just doesn't equate to enough fantasy points for my liking. So, another question mark he's got is his size. He's very undersized for the position, and that could result in him not being a 3-down back or being more injury prone just due to the harder hits in the bigger league. So, yeah, again, I think his value has gone up, but I wouldn't be touching him I just wouldn't be going near that pick. I think it's a very, very risky play.
No, fair enough there.
And I think a lot of people, like with the crypto market, buying the highs and selling the lows, but this one they're buying a lot in the high and it's just going to dip on them. Like, here's my steer clear. I would steer clear of that bloke.
No, that's fair enough.
Next off the board we had Desmond Ridder, pick 74 for the 40-year-old lookalike. What do you think of it, Carl?
Look, yeah, it's a great pick for Ridder to slip this low, and the Falcons to snap him up at that point in the draft is a very good pick, and he's gonna come on early. I'd expect Mariota only to start maybe the first couple of games. Might not even do that, and Ridder is going to be. You think they're just going to bottom out and just give him all the opportunity that he needs. So yeah, look, they're going to build a nice young core with obviously Pitts and Drake London. So yeah, I think it's just perfect for them to kickstart their rebuild, and I think it's going to be pretty much Ridder's offense from close to the start of the year. So yeah, picking, and obviously being a super flex, I'd look to potentially get him earlier because he's just going to get that opportunity. But yeah, what was your thoughts?
I think it's a good landing spot for Ridder, I'll be honest. But I think I know he's the second quarterback off the board, but I think his value has dropped. Just getting that second round capital at least is very vital. He's a third rounder. I don't know if he's going to, I know it's only Mariota he's competing against, but I just don't know if he's going to get that start because I haven't invested a whole lot into him. So I'm sort of worried. I'm danger signs. I wouldn't touch him in my first round of a rookie mock draft, to be honest, just due to that potential that he could get replaced next year with a pick in the top 10 for the quarterbacks. And we've seen that 2023 class and how good it looks, and it did appear a lot of teams were holding off for those picks next year. So he could be similar to a Davis Mills, and he could get the opportunity, and the teams could back him in for another year. But I just don't see. He will have to perform if he does get given that opportunity. And yeah, he's a winning player, so he could get that opportunity and prove himself. But it's really tough to come back from when you're drafted outside the first 2 rounds, even outside the first round. Like, you'd almost be steering clear if he's picked up in the 50th pick. So yeah, I like the landing spot. I just don't like the value invested in him because, as you saw with Trey Sermon, as you saw with Michael Carter, teams if they haven't invested anything into him, they're happy to upgrade and pay a bit more to get a better one.
Yeah, that's true. I think this year it's just a bottom out year. I think they're just gonna, because they have drafted him, I think they're just gonna give him every opportunity to prove himself. Even though yes, he's in that second or first round capital, I feel like Falcons are in that stage where they're just a full rebuild mode. They've got the young players. I feel like they're just gonna want to give him this year to see what he's got, and then they'll assess from there. I guess that's how I see it, at least.
So next one off the board, Malik Willis, pick 86 for the Titans. I know Matty Bay is stoked with this one,
Yes.
but just a cheeky shout out. Follow him on Insta, Matt Jansen's. But yeah, I think great pick up for the Titans. I think his value's definitely dropped as he was meant to go first round and get that investment in him. So he might not ever start again in the NFL realistically, because it's going to be hard to come and replace someone that's taken the team to the bye week of the playoffs, then into that almost AFC Championship and Super Bowl last year. So I think if Tannehill continues playing like he did through the whole season last year, he definitely won't get a chance or a look in. But if he, as you saw, Tannehill doesn't want to mentor him, that could drive Malik Willis to want to prove himself. And I think Tannehill's 34, they might want to give that opportunity to him if he isn't performing. So Malik Willis, I think it'd be a push if you took him in the first round, but that upside is just tantalising, and I can't not pick him at the end of the first round just based on that upside alone. So yeah, what did you think of that one, Carl?
Oh, look, I don't like this pick at all. This is just alarm bells. This is danger. This one, if you pick him, Malik Willis,
It's very high risk, high reward.
It's very high risk, and I don't like it. There was obviously something very, very wrong that a lot of teams passed on him, because a lot of teams did need that QB this year and could have taken a chance on Malik Willis much earlier, but he seemed to slip down to pick 86. That's just when he was meant to be a first round projection. So that's real warning signs for me.
But would you say there's warning signs with Desmond Ridder sliding that low?
Well, look, I don't
12 picks earlier.
Look, I don't think Ridder was as highly touted as Willis coming into the draft, so it's not as
Big
alarming, yeah. And I think Atlanta also have that area where he can come straight in, but Willis isn't going to start over Tannehill this year. We all know that.
Oh, you never know. Tannehill in that game against the Bengals.
Yeah, look,
He keeps producing that.
Yeah, well, look, if you take that game out of it, he still did have a good season and did lead the Titans to the bye week in the first week. So, it is one game, and I know we like to put him under the microscope for one game, which was a very important game in terms of his career and the Titans in general. But yeah, I just don't like this at all for Malik Willis. Like as you always allude to, that third round capital isn't that first round that he was projected to be in.
There's no guarantees with third rounders either.
A lot of these these NFL scouts and stuff must have just really not believed in his throwing ability, which was his concern, his accuracy. And hence he's end up landing here. He's going to have to sit behind. He's going to probably redshirt the year, sit behind Tannehill, and yeah, who knows where his NFL start comes from here for me. So look, he has that ability to be that Lamar Jackson or that Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, even that type of quarterback. But will he ever get the opportunity? I don't know. So for me, I don't really like the pick overall. The next pick we'll talk about is pick 94, was Matt Corral going to the Carolina Panthers. Look, I like this pick a lot. Obviously Carolina, we saw them chopping and changing between Cam Newton and Sam Darnold. None of them seem to really prove it or really work. I think Matt Corral, as I've alluded to in the previous video, he has that potential to be, be a starter potentially. And with a no clear QB1, I think he might have an opportunity. And look, yeah, he'll have to be battling all year. I think they might not set on one in particular, but he could definitely get some game time in his first year. So yeah, for a flyer to take him maybe like a third round or something like that, I can't see why he wouldn't take a chance on Corral. He might end up being the starter, the pure QB1 by the end of the year. What was your thoughts on that pick?
I like the pick by the Panthers. Taking a top 5 QB in any draft to pick 94, it's a good pick, I think. I think all the last 3 quarterbacks we've mentioned have been good picks just based on how far they've slid compared to what they were meant to go at. So I like the picks a fair bit. He definitely will get that opportunity this year, I'd say. Darnold and Cam Newton are not the answer. So yeah, I think Corral's value may have slightly dropped just due to not getting that investment. Third round quarterback investment isn't the same as a third round running back investment. So they can easily flip him next year for someone in the first round of that illustrious 2023 quarterback draft. So, but yeah, I think good pick for the Panthers, and if he gets that opportunity, there's the potential that they keep him for a few years because he really did show some glimpses at college. So yeah, I do like him, and he does have that rushing ability as well.
Yeah, which obviously Carolina love with Cam Newton. Obviously, we know how good he was and how much they, use those plays for quarterbacks. So Matt Corral could easily slide into that system quite easily, I think.
Definitely could. So next off the board, I like this pick a lot. Dameon Pierce to the Texans with pick 107. I love it. I think Rex Burkhead is not getting a look in next year. I just don't think that running back room is going to have any talent in it whatsoever. So I think he'll get that opportunity to be that running back one. He could be a top 20 running back next year just based on the amount of touches he's going to get. He isn't the best running back in the class, obviously, but if you're getting in the middle of the second or late second or early third, you've got a running back one for the Texans. So you're going to get points. You're guaranteed to get points. I like the Texans, what they've done this off-season. But yeah, I think Dameon Pierce really does have that chance to prove himself. One thing I will say though, before I jump onto you, Carl, we've seen Trey Sermon, we've seen Robinson from the Jags, we've seen Michael Carter now. Those running backs that don't get that much capital invested in, Elijah Mitchell's another one. The team's happy to go out and pick another one up. So they have picked him with 107. I don't think it's a high enough pick that they might not get one next year. I think they definitely still on the market for a running back potentially if he doesn't prove himself. And even if he does, I'd be a bit weary because, yeah, it's a tough position that running back to maintain that spot because teams are constantly out there looking to improve. So, yeah. What did you think of the pick, Carl?
Yeah, look, I love it. He's going to get that first and second down work, and he's got the body type, and he's a power back, as we know. He's not going to get that receiving, and he's not that good of a receiver. But as a pure runner, he's going to get all their end zone work pretty much, and goal line work. With Naheem Hines, he's going to be probably their receiving back more. So he's capped to an extent, but yeah, getting that first and second down work is going to be still very valuable for a fourth round running back pick, and if you pick him up in the third round of a fantasy draft, a rookie fantasy drafts, and you get him as a starting running back, that's a win in my books and a very good value pick. So look, he's probably one of the sleepers and one of the ones that you could get the most value out of for a pick. So yeah, if you take a fly on him for sure, if he's definitely around in that third, and if he somehow slips to the fourth, definitely get him. yeah, he's definitely getting a starter at that lows. I just don't see why he wouldn't do so, and that value for that sort of pick is just phenomenal.
Yeah, 100%. So,
and the last one we'll talk about was pick 144, and that was Howell from Washington. Look, I'm not sure where I stand with this pick. It all depends on Carson Wentz, really. Obviously, they've gone out and they've tried to avoid drafting, but then they're obviously probably thinking in the back of their minds, oh, look, Carson Wentz is a bit shaky and he's had his time. We know what he's like and all that. So, yeah, just all depends on Carson Wentz. He's still getting paid big money, so I think Washington is still going to give him the chance to perform every rut because they're paying him that much. But, yeah, look, if Wentz doesn't turn out right and Washington don't finish that low this year, which they could finish, maybe mid, like they're not going to finish down the bottom, but they'll be, maybe around that 6 and 9, or 6 and 10, 11, maybe around there. So not going to be way down the bottom. So they might not be able to have a pick that will have that capital invested for a quarterback next year. So Sam Howell could, if they're sick of Carson Wentz, be that number one maybe in the future. This year he'll probably be a redshirt. He won't see much of the field, but for the future, if it's a super flex like us, you may as well take a fly on him with a fourth rounder maybe. But yeah, I'm not sure what the future holds for Sam now. How about yourself?
Yeah, like the pick from the Commanders. I think they picked up a very handy quarterback if Carson Wentz doesn't perform. I just don't think the capital's there. Pick 144 says it really. You're not going to win dynasty leagues with pick 144 usually. I know Brady was 199, so could this be another story? I don't think so. We thought he might go in the first round. He's probably slid from the first round of our previous rookie mock draft to the late third. I don't have faith in him. I don't think he'll play this year. And yeah, I've gone completely off him just with that capital they've invested, and no team was willing to invest their pick in him before pick 144. So, excuse my French on that one, but yeah, I don't rate it. I don't rate him. His value's just plummeted to me. Yeah, I wouldn't touch him if my life depended on it, really. So
yeah, look, I'd only say that if it was a super flex, QB super flex league, then you might take a flyer on him in a fourth round. Maybe if Carson Wentz, he's very injury prone, as we know. If he does miss time and Howell becomes that backup and gets that starting, mid-season and proves a thing or two, then yeah, you might be able to, a fourth round might justify that. But look, I wouldn't be rushing out to get him by any chance.
Yeah, pick 144 really just says that one.
That's it for this episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did like it, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do.
Our links will be on the screen now.
Yep. And we'll see you on the next episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Sorry about the long wait as well. Have a good night, guys.
So.